Hello and welcome back to World Leader Leaderboard, the podcast where we rank every politician to tell you who's winning and losing each week. I'm joined by Rory.
Hello.
Georgina.
Hello.
And Nadia.
Hello.
How are we all doing?
Really good.
Very
exciting.
I think it's a particularly exciting one because as eagle-eyed viewers will have spotted already, there's something new on the table. Let us introduce the World Leader Leaderboard magnet set, which is crazy. We've been working on this for a little while. Essentially, the concept is that every week we get to rank the winners and losers, but you don't get to have a say. You get to suggest people, you get to try and influence us, but you don't get to make your own leaderboard. So we thought, what if we gave the power straight to you? And as such, we have made the World Leader Leaderboard magnet set, which includes 5 up and down arrows and also 10 world leaders who you can rank on your fridge, your radiator, your outside of your car, any magnetic surface, wherever you're going to do it. You can make your own leaderboard and each week you can update it with the faces in the pack. And if 10 isn't enough for you, if you're thinking your board's got tons of people, I want more than 10, well, you can have 20. We'll give you 20 because then we also have the European expansion set, which gives you another 10 leaders, another 10 European leaders. So if you're interested, it comes in a cute little box. It supports the podcast because, let's be honest, the podcast doesn't make any money. So if you'd like to continue watching the podcast, if you'd like to continue supporting this show in particular, then you can pick it up either for yourself or as a Christmas gift for a friend who likes the show or anything like that.
Or give it to someone completely without context.
That's crazy.
Just slip a box of faces of politicians through someone's door.
It does on the back explain briefly, but it would still be baffling, I've got to say. We'll be talking a little bit more about it in a moment, but if you head to the store and you pick up both copies, both the main base set and also the European expansion together and use code LEADERS, you'll get 25% off your purchase, bringing the price down to about £13.50 in the UK plus postage. So if you're interested, if you want to support the show, we'll talk about it more in a moment. But first, let's talk about our winners this week. Okay, Nadia, we're going to start with you. Who is your winner this week?
So my winner of this week is the US President, Donald Trump, for essentially securing a ceasefire deal between Israel and Palestine, or Gaza, to be fair. This comes off the back of months of him trying to broker some kind of peace agreement, failing to do so. Also comes off the back of multiple ceasefires falling through, but he has managed to come to some kind of agreement with them. And this push, I think, essentially came after earlier in the summer, we saw Israel step out of line of US policy with the bombing of Iran and then the targeting of Qatari officials in Qatar, which really did unease a lot of the Gulf leaders, which Trump is very closely allied to and considers their support essential to his own foreign policy. And that was kind of, I think, the watershed moment for him in trying to finally create a deal between Israel and Gaza. So yeah, as of the day of recording, the hostages, both ends are being released. So over 2,000 Palestinian prisoners, or Palestinians who were detained in Israel, for some of which for nearly 20 years have been in Israeli prisons. And then the remaining hostages, both dead and alive, in Gaza. And Trump has come to Israel today so Monday, and he's essentially received somewhat of a hero's welcome in Israel. He's been applauded as, even though he didn't win the Nobel Prize last week, he's been applauded as essentially peacemaker of the century by Israel, by Israeli officials. He's received massive applause by the Israeli parliament. And yes, so very much a hero's welcome to Israel. This is good news for him because this is a step forward towards him realizing his US policy, foreign policy in the Middle East and reshaping it and kind of continuing what he started in his first term of the Abraham Accords. It's also good news for him because he's managed to squeeze out some concessions from Netanyahu in the deal, which makes him seem as a good broker, strongman and whatnot. And also it gives him some kind of political respite from all the domestic turmoil happening in the US right now. So essentially overall a win for Trump. And that's that.
Sounds like it. Trump then moving up from the neutral middle of the board to the lightly positive section of the board. He's been up and down a fair bit lately. He was at the top for a while.
Yeah.
Kind of slipped down and is now maybe on the ascent. Certainly sounds like it from a foreign policy perspective.
For sure.
The question really that will dictate whether he continues to ascend up the board, though, is if this and other deals will stick. Obviously, he's been claiming 7, is it, wars that he claims to have ended, this being one of them. Do you think this one in particular is likely to hold and this will be something that we see continue, kind of this kind of new peace? Because this isn't the first deal that's been floated. Is this the one that will last?
It's definitely not the first deal that's been floated. It won't be the last, for sure. And it's definitely not a peace. I think what the deal essentially requires from Gazans, from Hamas, is a complete demilitarization, which is just, I don't think that's at all something that will happen in the near future.
Yeah.
It also doesn't present any kind of viable pathway for a two-state solution, which is kind of like seen as the bare minimum for the Palestinian issue and their own statehood recognition. And there's just a lot of things in that deal in terms of like when the Palestinian Authority would be able to take over control of the Gaza Strip is left undetermined. It really depends on Israel. It really depends on Netanyahu and his own political survival, whether he will push back against the deal or not. And he could at any moment just decide at a time where it's convenient for him to pause the deal, to end the deal. And there's really nothing that Gaza will be able, or Hamas or whoever's in charge at that time will be able to do to stop that. So whether this will lead to a viable solution, definitely not. The deal could hold out, we'll see. But if the domestic turmoil for Netanyahu does start to strain him, it's very likely he'll just move to circumventing parts of the deal.
Yeah.
And it's a really loose deal anyways. There's a lot of aspects that are quite loosey-goose, like, undetermined. So
Sure.
It would be quite easy for him to do so as well.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, as you say, what he does next and then how Trump reacts to that.
For sure.
Because we've seen similarly in Russia and Ukraine, the way that Trump has kind of gone both ways. And as soon as Putin hasn't stuck by what he said he'd do to Trump, he then turns against him.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be interesting if Netanyahu and when Netanyahu perhaps begins to go against this deal, how Trump will respond if he feels betrayed after this grand welcome into Israel. Let's move to our next winner this week. Georgina, that's you. Who is your winner this week?
My winner this week is Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. I want to caveat this by saying this week has actually been particularly bad for Ukraine militarily in that Russia has launched a mass wave of drone strikes, I think over 3,000 drones in the past week, across multiple sites in Ukraine, targeting civilian infrastructure, causing blackout and energy infrastructure, causing blackouts across numerous cities and in Kyiv, and power outages in 9 regions. But at the same time, that it's in itself comes in response to what's been a very successful campaign by Ukraine in targeting Russian energy infrastructure, weakening Russia's oil revenues, showing the Kremlin that Ukraine has force to, successfully hit and strike and cause huge disruption across the country. But it's also, there are 2 other reasons alongside that I think this week has been good for Zelensky. One being that Trump seems to have pivoted again towards Ukraine and away from Russia. In recent days, we've heard talk from the US administration that they are considering sending Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine, which would allow them to strike deep inside Russia, which would be a huge development and shift in the power dynamics in the war. This week, a Ukrainian delegation are traveling to Washington, D.C. for talks with the US on more support, possible further sanctions. And also, in the past few days, reports have emerged that since July, the US has been intelligence sharing with Kyiv, which has allowed it to undertake this very successful campaign of bombing Russian energy infrastructure.
Yeah.
So there has been a notable shift there. And then the third reason that I think it's been a good week for Zelensky is there's also a lot more serious discussions happening in NATO and within the EU about how to counter Russia's threat, which is, as we've seen from recent weeks, very prominent in the skies through drones. And this week, NATO said that it was weighing an armed response to Russian hybrid warfare as well, which is quite a significant statement from NATO thus far, which has been very reluctant to meet Russia with any kind of force, really. And this is good for Zelensky because it shows that there is a momentum now behind his side of the war in countering Russia. And I think Europe, the EU and NATO has finally woken up to the idea that war could be on their doorsteps and is really kind of, there is a momentum there in terms of considering how to deal with it.
Interesting. Zelensky moving up from lightly positive to the full positive section. Again, someone who's moved around a lot on the board recently is certainly ascending at the moment. As you mentioned, a lot of momentum around this at the moment. Trump seemingly turned pretty severely towards Zelensky and against Putin, especially with the intelligence sharing, as you mentioned. Like, that's been fundamental. We made a video about it recently in kind of the progress that Ukraine has made, and is a clear sign of cooperation and collaboration between the US and Ukraine. I guess I have a similar question to the one I asked Nadja on the back of her pick. Does this last?
I think it's a great question. I think for now, yes, because I think, you know, this is me just reading into Trump's psychology at this point, but I think he's in a moment of feeling like he's king of the world, he's a peacemaker, he's getting Gaza sorted out. Now he's like, we're going to get Ukraine sorted out. And I think Trump wants, he's in a phase of like pushing for this, you know, in the same way that we'll see a period of several weeks where Trump really escalates on one specific issue, whether it's tariffs or trade or whatever, or goes in on a certain country. His thing at the moment seems to be peace. And I think he will follow through with some more support for Ukraine that's more than just verbal and rhetorical at this point. But you know, you never know, because it's only as long as Trump's attention stays on that issue that you see words being followed through with action, and plenty more. What we see is Trump saying, I'm going to do this, or I'll threaten this to happen, and then that not being the case. I think the tide is shifting right now, but you know, it could well shift again. So in response to your question, I don't really have an answer.
We'll see. Yeah, no, you're right. It's interesting that this is a real kind of brand Trump is trying to build around himself over the last months, and maybe with Gaza being less of a pressing issue, one that he's spending less time on, maybe if he is still focused on this kind of peacemaker image, then Ukraine is the next big attention-seeking thing he can do. Maybe it will gain even more momentum, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, Zelensky moving up to the positive section. Our final winner of the week, Rory, that's up to you. Who's your winner?
My winner of the week is the new president of Peru, Jose Herri, who he has been elevated to the presidency over the weekend after the previous president, Dina Boluarte, was impeached. He was in line because he was the head of the Peruvian Congress. He is the 8th president of Peru in under a decade, so he's just the latest in a long list. And actually, his predecessor, Dina Boluarte, only became president because the guy who was president before her got impeached. So we're now something like 3 presidents sort of on from the last election, which is quite remarkable. He's winner of the week because he's now the president. He's 38 years old. And he's quite a sort of rapid rise to the top. He was first elected. Well, he first entered Congress in 2021. He wasn't even elected. He was a sort of substitute candidate on the ballot paper, but the person above him got disqualified. So he ended up entering Congress. He became the head of Congress in July this year.
Wow.
So he's only been in line to the presidency for a few months, and now he's there. His predecessor, Boluarte, was famously unpopular. She had approval of about 3%, and we did a video about it. Was the least popular leader in the world. Yeah. So many Peruvians, almost all Peruvians, will be very happy that she's gone. Yeah. But the caveat is that the Peruvian Congress is almost as unpopular as she was. It's deeply, deeply unpopular. So they're not going to be celebrating this new guy. Even more so when you look at his background, because he is really quite a, I don't know what the right word is. I'm going to say problematic character. Yeah. If you look back, as soon as he became president, people started going back through his tweets and his posts and things. There's some really like creepy weird stuff he said about women. He had like a sexual assault or rape accusation last year, which got shelved. There's various sort of corruption allegations against him. And actually, Alonso Gomendi, who's a friend of the channel, who wrote a really good piece in the latest Too Long edition, has gone through a lot of these old tweets and highlighted some of the crazy things the new president has said. But yeah, so he's now the new president. Despite all those terrible things, I guess he's a winner of the week because he's been elevated. But he does have some big challenges ahead. There's already protest plans. Well, there were protest plans against the predecessor that are now just going to be against the new president. And there are elections due in, I think, April 2026. So he's only going to be president for a few months. I don't know if he'll run or not, but the next few months are not going to be easy. There's really significant levels of sort of organized crime and violence in Peru, which is actually why Boluarte got impeached. So that's the sort of main issue he's going to have to deal with, but he's going to have to deal with it with basically no sort of backing from the public and really no sort of democratic mandate at all. But nevertheless, he is there. He is the president, so he is the winner for the week.
That is a way to enter the board. Not the most complimentary.
No.
But as an election winner, it's hard not to enter on the, well, not election winner,
just
as a kind of
new president.
I guess. A new person shuffled in. It's hard not to be shuffled in on the lightly positive section, which is where he will be landing today. You mentioned obviously the kind of political turmoil that's gone on in Peru in recent years. It looks a bit like the UK did circa late 2010s with all the prime ministers they've been through since an election. What do you think the future holds for Peru with him at the top? Is this just going to be another person they cycle through with all the protests continuing and kind of he just slips through the net?
So either he'll last until the next election, because it isn't really that long.
When is the next election?
2026, so next year.
Yeah.
So there will be probably another, that'd be the 9th president in under a decade after that election. But it's possible he doesn't even make it to then, because one of the 8 of the last decade was only in for a matter of days and actually had the same route to the presidency. He was head of Congress, someone got impeached, they became president, and within days there were protests, mass protests, and he resigned. So there is that sort of precedent, so he could take that trajectory and really be off the board as soon as he was on it. But it's very much not a resolution to the crisis at all.
We'll have to keep an eye on it. See if he slips down the board, having entered with the absolute faintest of praise. We'll have to see whether he can even make up to that kind of hype you've given him. Before we go to the audience suggestion, now we've done our winners of the week, we're going to play a little game to celebrate the introduction of our new magnet set. We're going to be playing a mini-game in this segment of the show for the next few weeks. The way it works is each week, one of you will be tasked with ranking a handful of leaders using our new magnets. But the metric you'll be ranking on them will change week by week, and some of them will be your opinion. Some of them will be kind of slightly fact-based. You've got to try to rank them in the correct order.
As in, there'll be a question that we have to guess.
Exactly. Okay. So, who would like to be the inaugural player of the new mini-game? As I grab the questions from the drawer.
I'd quite like to play, but I don't want to jump.
I want to watch Rory play.
I've shuffled them. If you pick one and then pass it to me.
Real preparation.
That's really fun.
Straight down the middle.
Okay. Thank you.
This is surprisingly organised for us.
Okay. Rory.
Yes.
You first get to pick 5 faces from the magnet board.
Okay.
These are the people we have. Some of them are upside down. You get to pick 5 people without knowing what the question is.
I think I've got to pick some varied ones so there's none that are too similar. Let's go Macron.
Yeah.
I think he's top right.
Yes, he is.
Who else have we got on there? Mohammed bin Salman.
Yeah.
Down the bottom.
Yeah.
Great headwear.
Great headwear.
George Maloney.
Yeah.
How many do I need? 5. So I need
5. More. 2 more.
Let's go Cyril Ramaphosa.
Yeah.
And Claudia Scheinbaum.
Okay. For clarity, we're using magnets on boards that aren't magnetic.
I was going to
which
say
is an issue we will fix in future episodes. But for now, they're blue tacked on, which is why this is. I mean,
It's not the best.
I wouldn't recommend using blue tack on the back of magnets at home. Rory, I'm going to hand you your 5 people and your board that you'll be ranking them on. And the category you're ranking them on today is an opinion-based one. So you don't need to get this right. There is no correct answer.
But I could be cancelled.
Ranking them on the leaderboard based on how much you'd like to take them home to meet your parents. And your options are Emmanuel Macron, Giorgia Meloni, MBS, Cyril Ramaphosa, and Claudia Sheinbaum. Normal rules apply. This isn't an endorsement of any of them. Just based on vibes.
I guess it's going to be an sort of endorsement of my parents' opinions.
What are your... If you were to take a politician home to meet your parents, as you often do, what do you reckon you've got? What do you think you'd be up to? Little board game? Go for a walk?
It's got to be a walk.
Okay.
Walk the dog.
Okay. Okay. So which one of these do you think is most up for walking the dog?
I think I'm going to go for, and this is classic Zach fashion, but I think Emmanuel Macron has that sort of European charm to him.
Okay.
And also he was walking the banks of the Seine recently.
Okay, great.
So I feel like he's got a lot of time to...
He walked through New York City.
He did, yeah.
He's fit and healthy.
He's a walker. Okay. So Macron at the top. Next up, I'm probably going to go Claudia Sheinbaum.
Okay.
She seems pretty cool, very, very sort of competent, very confident. Think she'd be quite an interesting dinner guest as well. Yeah. I'm slightly imagining it like dream dinner party situation now, but
it's exclusively politicians and your parents.
And my parents. They have to be there. It's almost easier to go from the bottom of the board. Actually.
Okay, you don't have to do it in order.
I think I'm going to put. I think I'm going to put Mohammed bin Salman at the bottom of the board. I don't think he'd be particularly welcome for various things he's done. I don't know how deep to go into the policy here, but I'm afraid his sort of sports washing has not won over.
Oh, okay. That's specifically what annoyed your parents, you think? Not the human rights.
Not track record.
That hasn't been enough to overcome that.
Yes, okay, fine.
Cyril Ramaphosa versus George Meloni.
It's a classic combo for a dog walk.
It is, yeah. I honestly don't think I have much of a strong opinion. I'm going to go...
Meloni can bring some nice pasta
nice
or
Italian
lasagna.
food.
That's true. She might bring,
Ramaphosa can bring some, was it, what's the, is it biltong?
Biltong, yeah.
What's biltong?
It's like dry
jerky kind of thing.
Yeah. I think I'm going to go Ramaphosa in the middle.
That's the dogs would like that.
Yeah. Ramaphosa in the middle, Meloni second from the bottom. Although, by all accounts, Meloni is quite good at charming other foreign leaders. So that'd be quite good. But,
okay, so do you want to reveal your board?
Got some good stories to tell at the table.
Okay, so let us know in the comments. Do you agree with Rory's ranking?
Yeah.
Are these the people you take home to your parents?
This is the correct ranking.
If you want to rank the world leaders on this metric or any other, then make sure to pick up a pack of the World Leaderboard magnets. As I say, the starter pack contains 10 of the world's most influential people. And then the expansion, the European expansion pack, includes another 10 from Europe. And if you want to grab both in one go, not only do we have a discount on all of them right now as an introductory offer, but we also give you an additional 25% off if you buy both packs in one go, bringing the price down to £13.50 in the UK. As we say, supports the show and helps to justify us continuing to sit down and pointlessly rank people. So if you want to.
I hadn't even thought that they don't have to rank their world leaders on the same
any metric you want. Any metric you want.
Yeah.
They could.
Shall I pass that back to you?
You can pass it back to me. In fact, put it behind you on the thing.
That was a really fun segment.
That was good. Not the question I was expecting, but
it's one of the ones we got in there. There's a lot more, so we'll be back next week with another one. For now, though, let's jump over to our audience suggestion. Okay, so every week we let you decide one person who's either added to the board or gets moved on the board. And this week, you've chosen Ulf Kristersson of Sweden. We're going to run down the panel and we're going to discuss whether he is a winner or a loser. And based on that, we'll be moving him up or down. Where is he currently?
Right in the
bang in the middle.
on the-
Oh,
for-
yes.
for the longest time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he has been. He's not moved in a while. Okay, so Rory, do you want to go first? Is he a winner or a loser this week?
I think he is a loser this week. People don't like it when we base stuff too much on polling, but I'm going to lead with polling. His main opposition, the Social Democrats, are consistently way ahead in the polls, and there's a lot of sort of right-wing infighting. I don't know if infighting is the right word, but sort of debate about come the next election, will they form a sort of right-wing coalition government again, and will they let the far right into government? Different parties have different views on that, and that could sort of scupper any hope of him being re-elected as prime minister.
Yeah,
I think it's next year, the election, actually.
Oh, interesting.
So
Not long. It matters.
quite
Those
soon.
good polls.
Yeah.
Georgina, winner or loser for you?
I'm going to go for loser, but only because I don't think he's a winner, and those are my two options.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think out of the Scandinavian nations, Finland, Norway, and Denmark seem to be quite prominent on the international stage with what's going on with Russia and air defense discussions in Europe, but we haven't heard much from Sweden about that. And I'm not fully sure what Sweden's current defense policy is, but I would expect Ulf Kristersson to maybe be more of that kind of unit, and he just doesn't seem to have featured at all.
Yeah, been a bit absent for sure. Nadia?
I think on the back of Georgina's point, I don't know what exactly the reason was why his former defense or foreign minister that resigned, was it?
Oh yeah.
And it's not been publicly said what the reason is, but there are some rumors that it is to do with the country's stance on NATO and NATO involvement. So that could be. So that's probably, that's not a good thing for him. The fact that ministers have resigned. I think loser. Also, just I don't think the electorate is very happy with him, as Rory mentioned with polling. Really high crime rates. People are unhappy with the immigration policy. So yeah, probably a loser for me as well.
Okay, bad news for Ulf Kristersson, moving from the neutral section into the lightly negative section. Sad news for him, but it's got to happen sometimes. Speaking of which, let's jump over to our losers of the week. Nadia,
Yes.
let's jump straight back in with you. Who is your loser this week?
So my loser of the week is the newly elected leader of the LDP, Japan's ruling party, Sane Takaichi. The main reason being is that so just a week ago, actually, we moved her up for the fact that she was chosen to be the next leader of the ruling party, the LDP, after Ishiba resigned. But now, 1 week into the job, it's not going well for her. The kind of main coalition party to the LDP has decided, after 25 years of a partnership, has decided to break away from the ruling coalition.
Wow.
So sad. So Komeito, I think, is the name. That's how you pronounce it. That's the name of the other party that have decided to break away. And the main reason for that is the same reason why there has been an ongoing political crisis, leadership crisis in Japan, which is the corruption scandals that have tarnished the LDP and the LDP's reputation. The party itself, Komeito, is quite small. So one of the two reasons why they left is firstly because they believed that Takaichi wouldn't be able to resolve the kind of scandals that have rocked Japan. So for context, for the last 2 years, the LDP have been accused of corruption, and I think it's called slush, transferring money from their campaigns to slush funds. It's caused a lot of internal turmoil within the party itself, different factions being made, fighting with other factions, just a complete breakdown of the established party that has been mostly in power in Japan for at least for the first bit of modern history. The reason why Komeito broke away is they thought that she wouldn't be able to soothe the situation. Another reason being they are a small party with a support base that is a little bit slightly older, and they're losing supporters, to put it bluntly. And they thought hanging on to the LDP is not the way forward for the future of their own party.
Got it.
But yeah, this is not great news for Takaichi. the party that has already been scrutinized over its handling of all these scandals. And now she has to try and find another coalition partner, which she will struggle to do. I don't think any of the other parties will want to be associated with the LDP. Also, if she fails to find a partner, that kind of spells the end of the LDP's established rule, because they are a minority at this point. So she will struggle. So first week into the job, and it's already looking quite dire.
It's a rough start.
It is a rough start.
You want your first week to be smoother than that. Like, a bad first week is normally you don't get your laptop on time, not that your coalition
or you
falls
break
apart.
your screen of the laptop.
Well, exactly. Takeuchi moving down from the lightly positive section to the neutral section, and we will see where she goes from there. I'm curious what we think, both you, Nadja, and I know Rory has had an eye on Japan for a while.
Sounds very sinister.
Sorry?
It sounds very sinister.
Yeah, I know. You're keeping an eye out. You're waiting to pounce. What this means for the LDP generally, because you obviously describe them as like the ruling establishment party, but they're almost more than that. Like, they've been in power essentially forever. So is this the beginning of that beginning to slip, do we think? Or is this an issue of the current moment and her as a leader, and this is kind of like something they'll work through and they'll continue to rule forever?
I'll fling it to Rory, but I'm pretty sure this is going to carry on.
It's time to pounce.
It probably is time to pounce, actually. But because, I think it's the gradual emergence of more of a regular sort of multi-party system. The one thing that the LDP have going for them is that the opposition there is a main opposition party, but overall the opposition is still fairly divided between multiple smaller parties. So in theory, you could get an opposition candidate becoming prime minister later this month when they vote on the prime minister, because there are more opposition MPs now that Komeito have left than there are LDP MPs, but that requires all of the opposition parties to agree on one candidate and a sort of program for government. And there was talk of that happening, but I think it looks unlikely now. I think I'm right in saying that. And in any case, if you have sort of 4 different parties of varying sizes and different ideologies unifying around one person, that they might get that vote through, but the chance of actually sort of governing effectively is pretty low. So I think she will probably become prime minister, but I think it is definitely a transition period for Japan. I don't think we're at the beginning of that, because we're probably some way into it already.
Sure.
But I don't think they can come back to what they once had after this.
Well, for the moment, she's moving down, as we say, to the neutral section, and one to keep an eye on for sure. Okay, Georgina, let's move to you next. Who is your loser of the week?
My loser this week is the leader of Reform UK, Nigel Farage. And this is for 2 separate reasons. The first reason is because Reform's recent policy announcement that they want to scrap indefinite leave to remain for legal migrants in the UK has gone down really badly across the political spectrum, including on parts of the right that may be open to some of Reform's policies. And I think this idea in itself actually undermines some of Reform's own arguments, in that if their concern with immigrants is that they aren't contributing to the economy, or that, they're a drain on the system, preventing those people from being able to establish a foothold in the UK economy and work and pay back taxes over a period of time is not going to help them become more economically beneficial to the UK. So that kind of doesn't add up. But it would be a bureaucratic nightmare. So Reform's proposal is that migrants, instead of having 5 years residency in the UK before you can apply for indefinite leave to remain, would have to reapply every 5 years for a new visa. And that in itself would be a bureaucratic nightmare for anyone in government to oversee. And so, on the one hand, Reform say, yes, we want to cut the civil service, we want to get rid of bureaucracy, we want to streamline government. And then you're also creating new hurdles for yourself by implementing this new measure. And also, at the same time, the Labour government is already considering extending the period of residency from 5 to 10 years.
Yes.
So it's not like Labour are not already considering ways to tighten up or to reduce the pressure on both the government bureaucracy side of things and also encourage migrants to stay for longer and work for longer. And this is also, we've seen in a couple of polls from YouGov and I think Opinion, over the past week, Reform have slipped by a couple of percentage points, which I think probably does relate back to this policy. The second reason that Farage is a loser for me this week is that I actually think Reform's media dominance is now threatened quite significantly by the new leader of the Greens, Zach Polanski, who in the past few weeks has come out as kind of a populist firebrand on the other side of the spectrum to Farage, and I think has been very successful in addressing some of Reform's policies head on and in essentially dragging the so-called Overton window, the area of what's considered acceptable to say in public discourse, from a place that has been increasingly dragged further and further to the right by Reform back to a more moderate part of the spectrum. And I think that's good for democracy because it means that you now have at least a counterweight to Farage. And it's also, I think it does pose a risk to Reform's own ability to sell their policies, because what Polanski is doing really effectively is pointing out where Reform's policies don't add up, or going into some of the reasoning that might be behind what Reform are proposing. And until this point, that voice hasn't existed or hasn't cut through.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something that actually may well hurt Reform further in future.
Interesting. As you mentioned, Farage previously at the very top of the board, moving down to the positive section, so still pretty high, but yeah, moving down from that top rung. You obviously mentioned a couple of parties there, Reform and the Greens. I'm curious what you think this means for Labour, who are obviously in government at the moment. Obviously having Polanski there kind of pulling at Reform, teasing Reform, kind of fact-checking Reform, all these things that kind of Labour were wary to do for fear of scaring voters or giving Farage too much attention, or whatever the reason is that they're kind of shying away from that kind of thing. Does this ultimately help them in that case, that having someone else who's willing to do it, having someone else who's willing to critique Farage and move the Overton window allows them to kind of avoid that headache? Or do you think this isn't a big win for Starmer?
I think instinctively you would think so, because if you're a democratic and specifically left-leaning party like Labour, then you would surely welcome another voice on the political spectrum that can help your cause essentially as well, pull the dialogue a bit away from the direction that Farage is trying to take it in. But I think it hasn't worked that way at all for Labour, and they're not responding in that way. We're seeing Labour now attack the Greens in the same way that they've been attacking Reform. And I don't think this is a good strategy for Labour, because what it shows is, what it reveals is that lack of core project, the lack of core ideology underneath it, and that instead of offering something and saying, this is what we're offering, sure, these guys are saying this and these guys are saying this, but you shouldn't go for them, you should go for us for this reason. They're not offering the reason. And instead, they're just attacking on now multiple fronts. And I think, when we see, sure, there's only been, again, one or two polls since Zach Polanski's taken over as leader, but there was one poll from Find Out Now recently, which showed the Greens polling on 15%, Labour polling on 17%, and then, sure, Reform well out in front. But I think the Greens are posing a threat to both Labour and Reform as well. So the whole spectrum of UK politics, apart from the Conservatives, because that's so irrelevant now, is all these different parties trying to work out who they should be attacking for what reasons, who their opponents are. And you're getting a lot of like crisscross kind of head-to-head debate that I think is really healthy, but it's also confusing because it shows that politics is in such a state of fray and chaos at the moment that anything could happen.
Absolutely.
It'd be crazy if by the next election the right-wing party is Reform and the left-wing party is the Greens, and we just have a completely different two-party system.
I don't think that's out of the question either. I was thinking about that recently. I really could see the Greens overtaking Labour in the coming months, Reform continuing to poll high 20s or whatever, and that basically continuing up very close up to the point of the next election, which would be a spectacle.
For now, though, we're just moving Farage down from the very positive to the regular positive section. And finally, Rory, who is your loser this week?
My loser of the week is the president of Madagascar, Andrei Rajoelina, who by the time this comes out, he may or may not still be, by the time we finish recording, he may or may not still be president. He was added to the board a few weeks ago, I think, because there's been these big sort of Gen Z, as they're called, Gen Z protests in Madagascar demanding his resignation. And he has so far held out against that. He's tried all sorts of tricks, but he fired I think his finance minister or energy minister. That wasn't enough. He sacked his whole government and replaced all his ministers. That wasn't enough because they're just saying, we want you to resign. He said, give me a year, I'll try and fix things, and if not, then I'll resign. They said that's not good enough. And the thing that's really looking bad for him now is that over the weekend, a elite army unit called CAPSAT, I think, soldiers from there joined protesters on the streets and called on the army not to sort of use force against protesters. And this unit is one that helped Rajoelina come to power back in 2009 when he led a protest movement that sort of resulted in a military coup and brought him to power. So there's really strong parallels there. The reason I said he may or may not be in power by the time this comes out is because reports just before we started filming that he has been evacuated from Madagascar by the French Air Force, and he's got he's going to make a sort of public announcement later tonight, and I can't really imagine what that would be. If you flee the country and you say I'm going to make an announcement, it's got to be a resignation, surely. That would be quite a downfall for him, considering how he rose to power in the first place. But I think it's that moment where you lose the military, which is like the one thing that's sort of keeping you in power. It's sort of no going back from there, I think. So he's my loser.
I think so. Moving down from the lightly negative section to the full negative section, he still has that axe hanging over his head, indicating the fact that if he does leave power, he will immediately be removed from the board, no questions asked. That might happen by the time this video comes out. If it does, then in next week's podcast we will discuss that. For the moment, we will leave him on the board. We'll keep that axe hanging above his head, but I think it's hanging by a real thread right now. And I think we'll leave it there for this week. Okay, before we go though, let's do our ultimate winners and ultimate losers of the week. Okay, so I think one of these might be quite easy, another one might be a bit harder, but the way this works is each of us now gets to write down the person we think is the ultimate winner of the week out of the people we discussed, and if we agree, then that person will move up an additional spot. Then we'll do the same thing in reverse for the ultimate loser, and as per the new-ish rules, we need 3 out of 4 of us to agree in order for it to pass. We no longer need a consensus. So, your options for ultimate winner of the week are Trump, Zelensky, and the new Peruvian president,
Jose Heri, I believe.
Yes. Spelt Jeri?
Yeah. I assume it's
if you want to write
Heri
that one.
if it's Jose.
Presumably.
J's same, yeah.
Okay. Rory, who is your ultimate winner of the week?
I have gone for Trump. I've split between him and Zelensky because I think I obviously didn't have very favourable things to say about the new Peruvian president. So it's between those two. I think all the caveats aside about whether this ceasefire will hold, it's sort of the strongest looking ceasefire we've had so far. And I think Trump has obviously played a really big role in that. And I think it's a big sort of, I think it reflects really poorly on the Biden administration, actually, that Trump has been willing and able to exert leverage on Israel and get this ceasefire. And I think that makes him my biggest winner of the week.
Georgina?
For the same reason as Rory, I've also gone for DJT because I do think it's an achievement that Trump has managed to get the hostages released, which, whatever Israel chooses to do next, they no longer have the pretext of,
that's true.
Oh, we've got a couple dozen hostages in Gaza still. So I think that's something to bear in mind as we go forward. And Trump is my winner.
Najo?
Trump is my winner of the week. I tried to do a little peace sign, but
interesting.
You could draw him a little medal as well.
This is more prestigious than
this is.
Same reasons as Regina and
wow,
it's a clean sweep.
No way.
Trump is our ultimate winner of the week. Yes. And that wasn't even the easy one, I don't think. Now it's time for ultimate loser of the week. Maybe it's not as easy, I think, actually. Your options are Ulf Kristersson, Takaichi, Farage, and Rajalina.
Yeah.
If you want any of those spelt, we can spell them. If not, we'll do a traitors style misspelling of the people you want to vote out.
This is a tough one, actually. I thought it was easy, but now I'm.
I thought it was easy too, but I think I'm not going for the person I thought I was going to. I don't know, that's spoilers, but. Okay, Rory, let's start with you. Who's your ultimate loser of the week?
I've gone for Andrei Rajoelina. Very hard to choose between him and Takaichi.
Yeah.
But I think the stakes are higher for him.
Sure.
She hasn't had to flee the country on a French jet.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
that's a pretty bad week.
Yeah.
Georgina?
I've also gone for Rajalina. I think I may have spelt it wrong despite you telling me about 2 minutes ago. Sorry.
Pretty
everyone.
close.
Yeah.
Okay.
Same. Andre Rajoelina.
Okay.
That's the easy way to spell
We've
it.
got consensus, but
Wow.
I do disagree.
2 doubles.
Oh, sorry. No, we don't have consensus. I lie. We've already. What I meant to say is we've already
Is it
reached
already?
approval. I went for Takaichi. I think because I figured he's going to be kicked off the board next week anyway.
That is true.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
It's punishment enough.
it doesn't really matter. I think your governing coalition falling apart in a country like Japan where the LDP is so dominant, that feels more existential. But we'll see. We'll see whether the axe falls before we've even finished recording. Anyway, join us again next week for more winners and more losers. Let us know in the comments who you think we should add or move on the board next week, and the top comment within reason will be the one we discuss. And of course, pick up a copy of the World Leaderboard Magnet set if you too want to go at ranking the world leaders like Rory did, either by who your mum would like most or by who you think the best politician is. Either way, we'll be back again next week, and we'll see you then.